Hello, and welcome to the Grow Patiently podcast, where we speak to interesting and amazing healthcare leaders, such as Karina today, to hear all about their stories and learn from them about how they're growing their businesses and how they're having a big impact in the area that they're working in. So, Karina, welcome. Let me throw it straight to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and the business you work in and what you do in the healthcare space?
My name is Karina. I was raised in New York City, preferably in Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. I started working in interventional pain medicine, where I started from front desk to medical assistant to then a surgical coordinator to then becoming a manager of a practice and kind of growing from there. Currently, I am a regional director of a orthopedic spine, orthopedic sport, orthopedic surgery, a multi-specialty practice. We have about 13 locations, a plethora of doctors and staff members, and are currently growing as we go.
Great. I love it. I forgot to ask, which is what the question I like to ask at the beginning, is that I know your practices and locations are based in New Jersey, but you are based in New York. So before
Yes.
we really get into the nitty-gritty, why don't you imagine, let's say I've never been to New York. I have actually been
Right.
there, but let's imagine I'm not, and I come to visit, and you say, Hugo, if you want to experience New York, you got to go and do this. You got to, I don't know, see this, watch this, eat there. What would you recommend to me?
I think the first thing that I feel like anybody that comes to New York has to go to Madison Square Garden. I think for me, it's a staple because I'm a huge New York Ranger fan. And I feel like that's where you want your excitement to begin if you're going to go see, obviously a sports game or a concert or anything like that. So I would start there one of your days if you're here. Other than that, the Meatpacking District is where you want to go for some drinks, to hang out with your friends, to get some food, to really party. And then there are places like me where I'm very non-committal to anything. I'll go into like a cute little restaurant. Like I was telling you earlier, my favorite spot is Añejo in the Upper West Side. And then we go for wherever it takes us. Everything is spread out all over the place. So you can definitely find a place where you want to hang out. Google's your best friend, but it will take you to really good places. My suggestion is if you get a real solid New Yorker, like, that's been in the city for a very, very long time, you ask them where the secret spots are and they'll take you to the best speakeasies.
Love it. Okay, well, I'll be sure to jot it down next time I come. Rangers, is that what sport is
Hockey.
that? Hockey.
Hockey.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we are a diehard New York Rangers fan since I was about 4 years old. So growing up in a hockey family, my brother played hockey. We have family that's in the NHL. It's wonderful.
Awesome. Do the Knicks play there as well? Do they share
They
the
do. The Knicks
Oh,
play there. The Rangers play there. Yep. They do.
so
So
what?
we
It's
are the
big
home of
enough
the
that
New
they
York
have two
Knicks.
different, do they have two different, they have
Yeah.
the ice rink?
Of
Oh,
course, that arena can be anything you want it to be. You snap your fingers, you get a concert, you get a sports venue, you get whatever you want.
ah, that's
Yep.
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Madison Square Garden. I'm actually a real sucker for sporting occasions. Pretty much any time I go to a city, I try to go to some strange things. I like to go to the station. Don't know why. I think it's because I used to be a history teacher. I like to see the railway stations.
Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful. It's great history.
Yeah, true. Yours is amazing in New York, Grand Central. And then I always like to take on a sporting occasion. So yeah, next
Hmm.
time I go, that's where I'll be trying to go. Okay, great.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for that. Let's dive into um, the orthopedic world that you're in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like the day-to-day role that you have in the business, or maybe even like the longer term goals that I imagine you have to kind of set and work towards.
So my position is a little different. It takes me into very all kinds of forms of office management, right? So right now we have about 10 to 12 locations, and each location is my responsibility to make sure that all those locations are staffed. All those locations have location managers. which report to me. And all those locations have appropriate schedules for each of my providers, aka doctors. And it is also my job to make sure that I put an SOP in place, which means a procedure that each staff member follows. So whether it's a front desk, whether it's a medical assistant, whether it's a manager, they all have operating manuals as to what I expect of them each day. My job also consists of dealing with a lot of the provider schedules. So any kind of new doctor that comes on board, I create that schedule for them. I put them into the different kinds of locations that they need to be in to be able to see patients. We make sure that they are affiliated with hospitals from near and far and surgical places. So that's all that I do, all the credentialing to make sure that the doctors are able to do operating procedures in the hospital goes under me as well. I am the credentialing manager. I am the one that oversees to make sure I build relationships, I should say, with hospitals as well as surgical centers to make sure that my providers can go there and do their surgeries and procedures. We also, I have a partner of the VP of operations. We implicate changes that are going to take place in different locations. We open up we scout new locations. We build relationships with other practices. We build relationships with attorneys because we do have a lot of motor vehicle accidents. So, I mean, my job is basically endless. I can be front desk one day and then a medical assistant the next day, and then I can be ruling an entire practice. It just depends. It's every day is different.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You get to do a lot of different things, but I can imagine it's pretty busy and tiring,
It is. It's
but
very, very busy.
exciting.
It's exhausting, but I love what I do. And I think when you've, come here with nothing and you build yourself up to what you are, I think that that is the most rewarding. So where I am, it's a lot of work and it is stressful, but I am grateful. I'm definitely blessed to be in the position that I am for sure.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So there's so many things I want to unpack already.
Sure.
One of which will be talking about SOPs, because that's really, really important in any business. Uh, but I think personally, especially in healthcare, because there's a lot of compliance issues and
Yes,
things that need to
absolutely.
be done carefully. But I think maybe before we dive into that, because you have multi locations, obviously SOPs are going to be incredibly important. But I thought before we get into that, why don't we talk about what it's like when you get a new location? Maybe from the point that you're looking for one to the point that you find one to the point that you then have to sort of bring it into
Right.
the body that is already working in a certain way, and that's where the SOPs fit in. Because I know a lot of people who are listening, they'll be thinking about, oh, how do I come up with an SOP and like why is that so important and things like that.
I think so. When I open a location, first and foremost, let's start from the ground up and work our way up because that's exactly what everybody's going to want to hear, assuming so. We obviously find a location, we see the perimeters, what's close by, what hospital is close by. These are the things that I like to look at, what surgical centers, hospitals, anybody that we're affiliated with to let them know that we'll be opening up a location. And we go from there. Sometimes when we inquire about a location, we like to see that it has been either somewhat of a medical area. And if not, we usually build it out. It takes us a little bit. We bring in whoever we need to bring in and we build it out. Currently, the location that I have, we are building out. And this is why I'm bringing it up because not every location that you're going to find is going to be perfect to what you need. So sometimes it's very important, to kind of figure out if it fits with your practice and if things can be made into exam rooms, things could be made into casting rooms, things could be made into procedure rooms, and so on. So that's one of the things that we look at when we are scouting for a location. After that, obviously, we also want to make sure that we do have ability to bring in patients from there, people who are in the southern region of where our practices are different from the northern regions where our practices are. If it's going to be lucrative, of course, we want to make sure that it's lucrative. We also want to look at the map of how many orthopedic spine surgeons are within that area. You want to make sure that if you're going to go into an area, you want to build a rapport. You want to build a rapport to make sure that there is not too many of them, because then patients have a tendency to have options, of course. After that, when we do open, before we even open our facility, we got to make sure, we're stacked with all the goodies. We got to make sure our injections are in there, our materials are in there. And then obviously, once we have that facility built out, then I start looking for staffing. Staffing that I know, once we have a schedule kind of put together and knowing what kind of doctors are going to be there and what days, that's when I determine how much medical assistance I need, how many front desks I need, what the manager is going to have to look like, how many days they're going to have to be in that facility, what those administrative days are going to look like, what we're going to need in terms of things that are required in an orthopedic office, so it gets bigger and bigger as you go along, but you learn as you open them, right? Because you start to kind of determine what doctor's going to be there and what his or her needs are going to be. So that's what we basically go based off of when we build these practices. What are the needs for our doctors? What can we do to make life easier for our staff and our providers and our patients?
Mm. It's really helpful and interesting to hear about all of that. I think what I'd like to know a little bit more about is the difference between scaling one practice up or balancing that with then growing to multiple ones. At what point do you feel like, okay, we want to get another location? And at what point do you think, no, actually, we need to just continue scaling what we're currently doing? It's that sort of debate between up and sideways.
Well, I think between you and me, it's really about what's coming into the practice lucrative, if it's a lucrative situation. If it's going to serve you and you know that, my marketing team goes out and, does their due diligence and kind of looks over at, okay, this would be a really good location because we have a lot of, for example, Medicare patients, or this would be a good location because it's next to a hospital and there isn't really a lot of orthopedics. This would be a good, there's so many different things that come into play when you're picking a location to go on. One of them has to do with, how much of an income your practice is making, right? You want to make sure that first and foremost, it's affordable, and that you have the bandwidth to do it, because that's what it really comes down to. I think bandwidth is one of the biggest things, especially with private practices right now. We have grown and have been, fortunate enough to grow this business as big as it is because we have relationships with, like I told you before, attorneys, hospitals who refer patients out to us, who we have a very strong referral source. So that's going to be really important thing. And when you are opening up a practice, you want to make sure that when you open an office, you're going to have patients go to that office. You're going to have, providers to be able to, go to that office and essentially make money, right? Because that's what we're there for. I think that if you're fortunate enough, and you have one or two locations and you start growing and making it bigger and bigger, it's because we are, again, like I said, we're very fortunate to have relationships with a lot of attorneys, a lot of hospitals, and we have a really strong referral source. So that's one of the really big things, to be really honest with you, because that's what's going to draw people in. That's, people trust other people's opinions, right? So what do we do when we're at, when you're here, when you trust a doctor and a doctor tells you, hey, go see Karina and her staff. They're amazing. The orthopedic surgeon is so amazing. You're gonna get the best care, which you are. And the patient trusts you, right? So they gravitate towards you. And it's really about word of mouth and marketing. Marketing is your best friend, and opening up additional offices, because that's what you want. You want to build a rapport, build a relationship in different areas of where you are. And that's what's going to get you, because then that's when people start to trust and they start to refer. It's a huge referral network. So it's really about, I always say it's really about who you know. It really is.
That's for certain in pretty much anything you do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I really like the idea of how strong the referral network is that you have. And I guess there's a part of it that goes hand in hand because you're orthopedic surgeons, and that ties quite nicely in with things, well, not nicely, but it ties in a lot with things like car accidents that then you get through the attorneys.
Right.
Um, but besides that naturally happening, oh, my camera has slightly gone
It's okay, I can
faded. I'll
still
sort
see
that
you.
out in a second. But besides that sort of naturally happening, what can you do to facilitate greater numbers of referrals? What sort of things do you do to get into the community and to build up those relationships intentionally?
So I think one of our biggest thing is that we do have a marketing team that does go out and they knock on doors. You know, they go to businesses, they introduce themselves, they give a little bit of a background. They let everybody know that we're here. You know, we opened a practice. We work with a lot of schools. We work with a lot of the police department, fire departments. We target very big areas where we know there's a monstrous amount of people. If we know that a police department doesn't have a designated orthopedic spine, we go to them and we're like, hey, listen, we're doing this event. We do a lot of marketing events. We're doing this event. We're doing free consultations for anything that you guys are doing as far as if you were ever hurt or hurt on the job or anything like that. Come see us. You know, you don't need to provide us anything. Let it, talk to our physicians, see if we can help, and we go from there. And it's really a word of mouth type of thing too. There's a lot of rejection that comes, with it. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting rejected, you're not moving forward. And I think that with us, we've just been able to build so much equity with people and with different companies that once you build a relationship with them, the referral source starts to come. But yes, we do target a lot of schools. We target a lot of facilities like rehab centers for elderlies. If there are elderlies that require attention, we target those. And we target very small, minuscule private practices, primary care physicians. We target also attorneys that we know may not have relationships with orthopedic doctors for their MBA patients, but most do, but we still happen, manage to get in there somehow. And also, it's about who you hire. So a lot of people, you don't want to hire a scrawny, short dude that's going to go in there and be like, "What's up? Here, have my card, call me." You wanna pick presentable people, who are gonna go in there and give the background of why you should come see us. So it's very important that your marketing team is strong, and it's very important that your marketing team is professional. And it is also very important to map out where you are going to go to market these places. And I know that in my previous job, when I did used to market, I used to actually create a map of the places where I wanted to go to hit these different spots, and it's all around your locations where your offices is. You want to do a mile radius for where you want to market. So very, very important.
It's great to hear the proactive approach that you all take because I think a lot of healthcare clinics and practices, especially smaller ones, they they'll do a few things. They might go to some schools and things like that, but I think there's a lot of fear, and you touched on it earlier,
Mhm.
of rejection. And
Of
your
course.
take on it is that, if you're not getting rejected, then you're not pushing yourself, I think is roughly what you were saying.
Mhm.
Um, it'd be really interesting to hear what sort of things, because you've been foot on the ground or boots on the ground, as they say. What do
Yes.
you do in terms of mindset to defeat that fear that we all get in different circumstances, but in that particular circumstance of going and knocking on the door, turning up somewhere that you've not really been invited, to let them know that you actually have something of value for them, and they may or may not want it.
So one of the tactics that we use as a company, I think one of them to reach really bigger marks, like I said before, attorneys, law offices, schools, we do, we will, or even the smaller ones. The smaller ones are a little bit more complex because you have one doctor or two doctors. They're like, they're just trying to sell me something, and it's not really what something that we're trying to sell you. So one of the things that I we used to do back in my olden days, boots on the ground, was, I would introduce myself, obviously, where I'm from, what doctors we work with. And if they're like, oh, we're not interested, I'm like, look, I'm not asking for anything in return. All I'm asking is to provide you with my business card. And if you have a patient that needs assistance, whether they had, a broken ankle or a fracture or anything like that, and they need an orthopedist and you get stuck, you just remember me. And a lot of the times I'll get a little smirk and then it'll start up an entire whole new conversations. What does your business do? What does your company do? Who are your doctors? Where are your locations? Being rejected is it's tough, but it lets you know that that's just not your place. And I'll be honest with you, the some of the places that I've targeted in the past and I've left my business card have come to me for help with people in on their staff, let alone referral source. So it does happen. You'd be surprised sometimes when you feel like you're just being rejected and pushed away. Hey, listen, don't want to bother. You've been here 2 weeks ago. Just want to touch base and wondering if I could just leave my cards here for your patients. And they'll tell you, yes, leave them on the table. You leave the card on the table, and that's how it goes from there. And then you visit every 2 weeks and just become extra annoying, and you'll get what you want.
I remember I heard this thing when I first started out building the business that I run. And it was about to get over the fear of rejection, you can go and ask people things that are pretty outlandish that they'll almost definitely say no to.
Mhm.
Just things like turning up at the front of the queue and saying, "Do you mind if I just go in front of everyone?" And people are
Yeah.
going to say, "Yeah, I do mind. You can't do that." Or when you're in the restaurant and you've ordered your drink and you've had it, and then you just say, "Can you just refill that for free?" And they're like, "No, that's not how it works." And the
Right.
idea is that you build up these things of, "Oh, how can I possibly ask that?" Uh,
Mhm.
but then they say no, and your life is exactly the same as it was, and nothing needed to be nearly as scary. And I always thought that was quite a powerful thing to do.
I've always, there used to be a doctor that I used to go to just to market, just to hand off my cards because I knew he had a strong referral source. And I remember just going up to him, and it would be like clockwork every 2 weeks on the same day at the same time. I would be there. And his front desk, they were just such amazing human beings. She was an elderly lady by the name of Marilyn, and I'll remember her for as long as I can live. She must have been in her 70s. She's been with him for a long time. And she's like, why do you keep coming here? And I said, because there's going to be a time where he's going to need me and I'm going to end up being there. And he's going to be like, that's the annoying girl that came in. Surprisingly so, his daughter had gotten into, I think she was playing tennis and she broke her knee, like not her knee, her ankle, or something happened. And he called me because I purposely gave him my cell phone number. And he's like, hi, Karina, this is Dr. So and so, And I was like, I knew you were going to call me. I knew you liked me. And he started laughing. And from then, I built a relationship. And the pain management office that I was working for, they actually, you know, I still get referrals from him, which is great. So and now that pain management office sends me referrals. So it's kind of like a form of a networking. You know what I mean? So it's just, listen, it's about being consistent and being annoying. If you're annoying enough and you're pretty enough and you put your foot down to what you want to do, you're going to get what you want. It's just a matter of time.
I love it. Yeah, the persistence.
Yeah.
Okay, let's let's go back to the SOPs then, because I do think that's really important. You have multiple locations that open up. You probably have SOPs that are already written for the other practices that you have. Firstly, how do you come up with the SOPs? And then secondly, how do you implement them in a new practice?
So SOPs are normally a direct conversations. Every Thursday, I have a meeting with my managers. And every Thursday, I go based off of each location who and what everybody needs as far as staffing, as far as any issues that they've had, and so on. Really sitting down with each location and discussing the needs and what needs to be put in place and what issues they're having is really your roadmap, a beginner's roadmap to what you want to build, what kind of procedure you want to build and put in place. So one of the things that I'm currently working on, for example, is making sure that there is a clear picture of what personal injury looks like for my managers, kind of like a cheat sheet, right? And it's a procedure that they need to understand and take when they are seeing motor vehicle patients, when their location doctors are seeing motor vehicle patients. So that's one of the things I'm creating. SOPs are based on what that location needs. Most of my SOPs right now are practice wide, and I'll tell you why. It's always the best to keep a practice afloat when there is, first and foremost, consistency, and when there is same SOP in place everywhere. Because if you create different SOPs for different providers, it's going to be a shit show. Excuse my language. And I've seen it happen before. If you are creating an SOP for your staff, and every department has a different SOP. My medical assistants have a different SOP. My managers have a different SOP. My front desks have a different SOPs. My X-ray technicians have a different SOPs. My authorization team, my call center, so on and so forth, right? SOPs I gather from all the information I retain from my staff in regards to what their needs are. And then I create a roadmap for them to follow. Not every location is different. It's just the departments that are different.
Hmm.
So, uh, you know, practice wide, they should all be the same. And I stress this because I've seen this happen in the past where the SOPs were different in every office. And it was like when one office calls the other office doesn't know what the other office is talking about. And you don't want that. You want a certain consistency that it's very, very important. So creating SOPs is really what your staff needs are, what your managers are coming in with. Hey, Karina, I have a problem with X, Y, and Z. How do we fix it? How do we put it all together in one and create a roadmap for everybody to follow? And that's where my SOPs come from, really. It's just, patient information, doctor information, staff information. You put that bad boy together and you create something that everybody can follow. So definitely, it's a little bit different, or maybe the same as a lot of practices do, but this is the way I do things.
Yeah, I find for us, one of the best ways to do it is to, once you've completed something, then you sort of take stock of exactly how that happened. And then once you have it in a clear document, it makes everything so much easier. And you just follow
It
that same.
it does, and you know what? I will tell you that things do change consistently, especially here. Rules, regulations, and so on, HIPAA, OSHA, all those fun things. So I have to always keep that in mind. And I think it's very important that every 3 to 6 months you evaluate what you created and then go back and see if it needs some adjustments. I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely, especially in healthcare. My gosh.
Mm.
Okay, so what about this? What do you think is the hardest thing for you in your role in terms of growing the business, expanding it, delivering on what it is that you were sort of hired and told to do?
For me, I think the hardest thing is staying on top of each location to do what is asked of them in a way where we create those roadmaps I was talking about. And one of the reasons being, I think, is because you have so many different personalities that work together. You have the tired personality, the stubborn personality, the one that doesn't. And I think that's where a lot of my issue, not issues, but it makes it very hard for me because when I try to implement something, things come in different ways. Staff is different, especially my managers. They're all phenomenal, but they're all very different personalities. And there are ones that will say, okay, and then there are ones that will give pushback because they don't see the bigger picture. And that's okay. But it's very difficult to work when staffing is an issue. So I think that's one of my main things. I think as far as growing a business, I mean, I'm so fortunate. I have so many great people that work underneath me and work with me that I can't really complain. I have my CFO who's amazing. I've been working with him for now 3 years. He's been helping me build my career. I have a new VP that just started that me and him are creating all these different things. So I have very good help, and I can't really complain, to be honest with you. I think, again, the only thing is dealing with multiple personalities all at the same time, wanting to do whatever they want to do. And then you're like, stop it. I'm trying to create this so it makes your life easier. And they're just like, no, I want to do it my way. So basically, I think that's really the only issue that I have as far as, growing, whether it's growing pains or staffing or whatever it is in my career to see.
It sounds like throughout all the conversation that we've had, the relationship between yourself and other people is has been the key to all your success,
Absolutely.
really.
It's so funny. I had somebody come in to my office, I think it was on Tuesday, and they were doing some of the like insurance backgrounds and all this stuff. And one of the things it was an older gentleman, he was in his 60s, and he said to me, he's like, when I spoke to you on email, you were so stern. And when I meet you, you're so nice and you're such a sweetheart. And he's like, if there's one thing I never see in practices is that staff love their boss. And he goes, I can tell that they love you, but I can also tell that there's a whole lot of respect. And, it's so important for a practice to have people who work, again, different personalities, but work with people and be very understanding of everyone's situation. And that's what I've built with my staff. I like to make sure that they are heard. I like to make sure that they know that I'm available to them at all times. I also like to make sure that if there's any issues or problems, they come and talk to me and let me know. So having relationships is so important in my position because it gets you closer to the things that you want. And also, it makes your life so much easier when you are stepping out of the office and can't be there for them. They know that oh my God, if anything happens, we can call Karina, we can, reach out to her and she's going to help us take care of it no matter what. So building a rapport with your staff is definitely very important. It's as important as building a rapport with any hospital, surgical center, physical therapy office, chiro office, whatever you want. So yes, it's definitely a lot of building up as you go.
And it sounds like you're great at it. So that's a bonus. Well,
Thank
look,
you.
Karina, thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been really, really interesting hearing about, like I just said, the people-centric view that you have on everything, how you've grown the business, this huge role that you have, and the impact that you're making, really. It's really exciting to hear. So it's really commendable. And I want to say a massive thank you to you for coming and sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure the viewers would like to say thank you too. But I also want to say thank you to the viewers, as always. Thanks for watching and for listening. This is one of the parts of my job that I love doing. It's really enjoyable. I love it. So thank you so much for listening. Please do like and subscribe. It always pains me to ask it, but please do it because it essentially helps us get the message out. And I do feel like the stuff that people share is really, really valuable. So if we can share that with more people, that's a great thing to do. So my final question for you, Karina, to end on here is that if you could go back to yourself at the beginning of your career and you could only say one thing to that person, what would be the advice that you'd give your sort of, I don't know, 18-year-old self?
I would say I would give myself a hug and I would say everything will be fine. You're going to be perfect where you are. And knowledge is everything, but networking and making sure that you have the proper network of people who believe in you is very important. So network yourself, make sure that you're making proper connections, make sure that you're connecting with people in the field that you want to be, and just let myself know that at the end of the day, you win and that you're going to be where you want to be. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. No schooling, no degree, no nothing. It's all about who you know. So get to know them.
I love it. Spoken like a true winner.
Yeah, right?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Karina, again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Karina. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hugo.